here, for those of you that don't know me. And for those of you that are just tuning in, it's been a while. You know, been a wild ride. This year has been just wild. Let me just put it that way. You know, I had a dump truck flip on its side. A driver flipped it on its side. You know, obviously it was a driver. You know, before that, I think I posted some pictures. You know, a driver put a trailer in the ditch, and then the next Monday he crashed it into another truck. You know, and then on top of that, this year I probably did maybe $30,000 less in revenue than I did the previous year during winter. Like the first 4 months, I think the first 4 months of this year, 2025, right? Obviously, work's picked up since then, but the winter was very tough for a lot of people. And, you know, I just want to give you guys some hope. If you guys are trying to start your dump truck business, let me give you some more specific instructions on how to save for your dump truck, right? Because I always tell people to pay cash for their first dump truck, buy it 100%. That way, when you first go into business, it's not all debt and you're not, you know, losing sleep at night because you can't figure out the numbers. Because there's a lot of numbers in the dump truck game, and you don't know your numbers until you start doing business, right? Everybody's numbers are going to be slightly different, right? Fuel in Washington is $5.50 a gallon. Fuel in Ohio is probably $2 a gallon. The numbers are a big difference, right? So I would say you have to save for a dump truck, but you can't save in dollars. That is just becoming more and more evident, right? And I know some of you understand this, and a lot of you don't understand this. And I honestly didn't really understand it either until probably I started making some serious money. You know, part of the problem is a lot of you guys, you make such little money, it doesn't even matter that there's inflation because you're broke no matter what, right? But a lot of you guys, you know, you save your money, you're saving your money, you got $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in a bank, then you got $5,000 in the bank, and then, but when you first started saving, you saw dump trucks selling for $8,000, and now they're selling for $15,000. And you're like, I can't save fast enough. And so what is really happening is the government is printing trillions of dollars, right? And so what's really happening is yes, your nominal value is going up in your bank account, but your purchasing power is going down, right? And that's happening because of a supply and demand problem, right? When there's excess supply of money in the world, the value of it goes down, right? So if you want to buy a dump truck, you have to save your money in some sort of hard asset. You could do it in gold, you could do it in silver, you could do it in Bitcoin. I mean, there's a couple other ones, you know. Me personally, this ain't financial advice, right? I got to do the little disclaimer crap. Me personally, I got a lot of money in Bitcoin. You know, I'm not going to say how much gold and silver I got. It's, you know, a fair amount, right? That's what you need to be saving in. Literally last year, I started buying, you know, some gold and silver. The year before that, I started buying some gold and silver. And it's like doubled in value. If I would have just taken that money and had it in the bank, guess what would have happened? It wouldn't have doubled in value. It would have lost value, right? And the government keeps lying to you, and a lot of people keep lying to you, and they're telling you that the inflation is 2 or 3%. That is the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard of in my life. Nothing is inflating at such a small percentage. 2%? They say the inflation is 2%. That is ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Yeah, you cannot save in dollars, because while you save in dollars, the government robs your value. That's literally what happens, right? So that's the same reason why back in 2000s you could buy a house in Washington for around 150 to 200,000. And literally fast forward 5-10 years, and now that same house is 700,000. 700, right? It does not make any sense. Okay? So here, I mean, the Roth IRA, that is a you know, I'm okay with the Roth IRA because you pay the tax and then it grows tax free, right? But my problem with those kind of things is you're paying a fee. You're paying a management fee. I used to do Edward Jones, and then I realized how much they were holding me back, right? I was putting in $100 a month or whatever, and it was growing 6% a year. And on a good year, maybe 10%, right? Growing, right? That's what I'm going to do, air quotations. Because realistically, 6% is not growing. That is staying equal or lower than the real inflation, right? Which is closer to 10%. If anybody says inflation is under 10%, they must not be buying the same things I'm buying, right? Because when I was in high school, you could buy a double cheeseburger on the dollar menu. Now, you can't even buy a cheeseburger for 15 bucks. At that rate, basically, the burger has cost $1 more per year, which is basically saying that the money is deflating or inflating. The value is deflating 50% every year, which means your dollar is half of what it was worth before, right? So another thing I noticed too, right? So I've been in business for 8 years, right? I've been working my tail off. I made a buttload of money, right? I really did. I made a buttload of money. I had 5 dump trucks, and then we had a bad year, right? Which everybody's entitled to a bad year, you know. You can't have good luck every year for infinity, right? So, dump truck got crashed. The pup trailer got totaled. You know, the other dump truck got basically totaled. It didn't get totaled. The insurance company... Okay, so let me just lay it out 100% how this whole scenario has gone for me this whole summer. This whole summer I've lost money. But luckily I've had enough money that it didn't really matter. But, okay, so in April, my 2024 got flipped on its side. A driver drove it off a straight road, basically. Landed on its side, it snapped a tree in half, and then landed on another tree, and it held it, right? So I had 2 wreckers come out, 2 tilt rotator cranes come out. They lifted it off, put it on the road, and then I had it lowboyed to my house, right? I'm going to get to all the questions in the comments in just a minute. I just want to finish the story, right? So I had it lowboyed to my place. I checked it out. I seen all the damage. I drove it to the dealership, drove in a straight line. It just, you know, there was lots of cosmetic damage. And, one or two little mechanical issues that I could note, right? And so dropped it off there. So here's the story, right? Here's why you don't want a truck with payments, right? Because it was the driver's fault that he drove it off the road. My insurance is not paying lost wages, right? They're not paying lost wages. They are going to cover the repair bill, but I got to cover the $5,000 deductible, which, that's not a big deal. They're not covering lost wages. They're not covering lost revenue, right? And I still got to make the payment, right? Which is $6,700 a month. And then on top of that, you got insurance, which is $1,300 a month. Right, so basically, no matter what, $8,000 is disappearing every month, right? So, April, that happened. I talked to the dealership. They're like, oh, yeah, 2 months, it'll be done. No questions asked. 2 months, done, deal. You'll have back. You'll be on the road again. And I'm like, yeah, right, dude. I know this show. It's going to be 3 months minimum. And here we are 6 months later, and I still don't have my truck. Meanwhile, I've been making an $8,000 payment every month without having a truck to make the payment, right? So, I hired one of my friends to drive my truck, and I sold 3 trucks, and I basically took the whole summer off, and when, was working on a boat with my son, and we were building it, and, we were doing some exploring. We, went out and seen a couple islands, went fishing a whole bunch of times. We went to Tacoma Narrows and back from Shelton, that's pretty far, it was fun. We boated past Anderson, McNeil Island, all that cool stuff. We had a blast, right? Then my buddy's like, hey, I got to go back to college. So I'm like, okay, I'll hop back in the truck, whatever. So now, it's just me right now. I don't have any employees. There's no need for an employee because I don't have one truck, right? Eventually, my Kenworth's going to get out of the shop, right? But while it was in there, before this truck got crashed, I ordered a W900, right? Because it's the last year of the W9. And nothing is as fine as a W9. We all know that, right? So I ordered one, spec'd out exactly the way I wanted it, my retirement truck. The last truck I'm ever going to buy because I don't need any more dump trucks, right? And then I was like talking to the dealer about trading in the Kenworth that got wrecked. And they're like, oh yeah, well, it's only worth $180. It's like, no, it's not. That's worth way more than that, bud. You're going to have to sharpen the pencil because at that price, it ain't getting sold. I'll just keep it for that, So right now I got 2 trucks, just me driving, which no big deal. I love driving, So one thing I've come to realize is, I had 90, well, not really 90. I would say 70% of my whole value, my net value, my net worth or whatever you want to call it, in the dump truck industry, in my personal dump truck business, right? And the only value I really had is my house, which, some people consider it an asset, some people consider it a liability. It ain't making me money per se, it doesn't have a cash flow, but if I ever had to sell it, it's worth a buttload of money, right? So, in a way, it's an asset because it stores value, but it's also a liability because it costs money every month and there's no cash flow, right? So I'm like, okay. So I sold the 3 dump trucks and now I got, a nice little nest egg, basically a cushion, I got a lot of money in Bitcoin because I think Bitcoin is really going to take off in value. It's already taken off, right? But we're in the early stages of institutional adoption, right? Now, a lot of you guys are probably like, oh, Bitcoin's fake internet money or whatever. You haven't done your research, right? Take the time. This is the best advice I can give you right now as a human being, as a friend, as a, I try and inspire you guys. What I'm doing is I'm putting my money in Bitcoin because I've done the research, right? If you guys take the time to learn about Bitcoin, learn about the cryptocurrencies, right? Not a lot of cryptocurrencies are what they call shit coins, right? They're scams. A lot of them are scams. So don't be just putting money in every which. Do your research, guys. Do your research, and don't get caught up in all the hype in the there is a lot of hype in the crypto industry too. You know what I mean? You can't just go put money in whichever one you looks the brightest and is the most flashy. Sometimes you have to put money in what's boring and what's been around and been tested. Bitcoin's been around for 15 years, right? And it has constantly made higher highs and lower lows, right? We got BlackRock. They own $90 billion worth of Bitcoin. If BlackRock owns $90 billion, you think it's going to go to zero? It ain't going to zero, bud. Okay? It's going nowhere but up. That is their most profitable ETF in all of their stuff. Right? So anyways, I don't want to preach to you about Bitcoin or whatever, but do your due diligence. Look into it, guys. That's why I got my money. That and sound money, gold, silver. If you're going to save for a dump truck, because when you buy a dump truck, you're buying yourself a good job, right? Owning a dump truck business is never going to make you super, super, ultra rich, okay? Justin likes to think that he's super, ultra, super rich. He ain't rich at all. He is in debt up to his eyeballs, and it takes 2 accidents for that dude to go under. Maybe 3. If he has one bad year, he'll be under. He'll be selling his little Rolex that ain't even worth $10,000 or whatever. His little, I don't know. It's not even a collector's. He thinks he's a watch collector now. He thinks he's a watch collector because he bought a Rolex. Dude, you know how many crypto punks got Rolexes? They're not collectors. You know what is a collector? One Daytona out of all the Rolexes. That's it. There's only one of them that's really anything, right? Anyways, I don't want to get on my soapbox. Let me look at these comments here. Let's see. Top chat. All right. All right. Business bro, it's doing great. Saving is hard. Government's robbing me. Gold and silver rises and falls. Yes, it does. It does rise and fall. But it is very stable considering the other options. Put cash in a Roth IRA. I do agree Roth IRAs are okay. I've had my money in one before. I didn't keep it in there because here's the reason why I didn't keep it in there, right? Number one, I had my Roth IRA through Edward Jones, and they're charging me some ridiculous maintenance fees, right? And then on top of that, the index funds and the mutual funds that you buy in that Roth IRA are also getting feed. So you're getting feed more, right? So what you should do is just do your due diligence and look at exactly which mutual fund you want to put your money into, and just do it in an individual account, right? Don't have some broker do it, because honestly, you're just getting feed to death. And that's what a lot of people don't know, But don't just go dumping your money in just Yahoo Fund or whatever, you know what I mean? You need to look at what you're putting your money into, right? So, anyways, guys, I just pulled up to the gym. 5 seconds. If you got a question, put it in the comments, in the chat. I'll get to it. If you don't, then, I'm going to go hit the gym, take care of my body. A healthy body gives you a healthy mind. If you don't have a healthy body, you're not going to have a healthy mind. It's that simple, guys. We got one mind and one body. If you don't take care of it, it is what it is. You only get one spin on this world. Would I start a dump truck business today? Yes. And I say that because I only know the dump truck business, right? When I was younger, I'm talking like I'm an old guy. I'm not really old. I'm 36, right? But back when I was in my 20s, I had 3 business ideas that I thought I could execute well because of my skills, right? One of them was a roofer, because I got kind of tossed into the roofing industry because I needed a job, and, you know, I needed something to do. So I got tossed into the roofing industry as a roof loader, which was a slave job, right? And then I eventually got my CDL because I'm like, I'm not going to load roofs the rest of my life. I'd rather be on the truck tossing the bundles on the conveyor than be up on the roof risking my life falling off of a roof. Because in the winter, it gets icy and it rains. And if you step on your rope, you're going to fall off the roof, and guess what? Done deal. You know? So I knew how to roof, and I had been welding since I was in high school. I bought a Lincoln stick welder, right? I really wanted to get into welding, and I had gotten really good at it. I took 2 courses at Bates, right? Bates Technical College. I took a basic and an advanced welding course. I did well. They wanted me to go to, they wanted me to do another welding course or whatever to get my Weibo certification. I think that's what it's called, Weibo or whatever. And I didn't have the money. And I was not taking out a loan for something I didn't know I was going to get a job in. You know, and obviously my parents were drug addicts, so they weren't going to give me the money to go do it, right? And I didn't have the courage in myself to do it, to take out a loan and do it, right? And, I thought about doing underwater welding too, but that, again, very, very, very dangerous. One wrong arc strike and you're dead, right? Electricity and water only mix when you're not in between them, right? So I loved welding. I did try a welding business. I did try it. I tried a mobile welding business, and I had very small success. I had enough success to know that I could make way more than I was making, but I also had enough experience to know that's not something I wanted to do full time, because I didn't enjoy it doing it full time like I did when I was just making, welding sculptures and art. Like, that's what I did. I have a very creative side, and, well, I did, and I would express my creativity through making welding art and stuff. And that's what got me into the welding to begin with. And then I was like, wow, I could make some money doing mobile welding. And so, I made a couple $1,000s mobile welding. But I realized that was something that I did not want to do full time. I don't want to sit there and breathe smoke and be sweaty and hot. So I was like, I don't want to do that. But I had my CDL, so I had experience driving. I knew driving was something that I could do for the rest of my life. Easy. Easy. I could skate through life driving. That is one of the easiest things a person can do. All you do is sit on your butt and you just tolerate other idiots on the road, So I knew I could drive for a living, right? Because I've been driving since I got my CDL when I was in roofing. And then I took that skill of driving into the tanker industry where I was in the fuel industry, right? And I saw one invoice from Big Rigs Tanker to the military. We were hauling jet fuel from Vancouver to Klamath Falls, Oregon. And those MFers were making $10,000 per load. And this was 8 years ago. 8 years ago. They're making $10,000 per load, right? And I was doing 3 loads a week. And I was like, wait a second here. You mean to tell me these guys are making 10 grand? I don't know all the numbers. I don't know what their insurance is. But I know what their driver's wages are. And I know how much fuel I'm burning a day. The numbers are not adding up. I'm the one that's working my tail off, and I don't feel like I'm getting compensated versus what they're getting compensated for owning the truck. And that's when I started to add 2 and 2 together. And I was like, maybe I should buy my own truck, And then I figured, okay, I ended up bumping into a couple dump truckers. And I was like, well, what are you guys making? And they were telling me they were making $30, $40 an hour. And I ran into a union guy that was like, oh, yeah, I'm making $45 an hour driving dump truck. He was like a Tucci driver. And I was like, you're making $45 an hour hauling dirt? And I'm hauling fuel and getting paid $20. Something ain't right here. Something ain't right. So then I was like, any monkey can figure out how to drive a dump truck and pull a lever and flip a switch. Any monkey can do that, right? And I'm like, well, all I got to do is just make sure that I can keep my truck running and, manage my cash flow, and boom, bada boom, bada bing, I'm in business. And that is basically what I did, And honestly, I would do it again. I would do dump trucking again. But I think I would take a different route because, dump trucking has made me a lot of money, but there's so much risk involved with the dump truck business that when you hire a lot of drivers, you're taking on so much risk that you don't really need to take. The risk reward is not really, it's kind of worth it, but it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I had 7 good years and then 1 bad year that really set me back. This last year set me back a lot of money. I lost probably, over $100,000 this year, probably, because of the whole ordeal. But I had 7 amazing years, right? So, the question I got to ask myself is, am I going to have 7 more amazing years before I have another crappy year? Or did I just really get smoking lucky my first 7 years? Right? So, if I were to do it all over again, I wouldn't buy as many trucks as I did. I would just keep it just me, honestly. That is when you make the most profit per truck, is when it's just you, right? And I wish what I would have did, looking back, hindsight's 2020, I got perfect vision looking back. If I would have took my money and just owned 1 dump truck, 100% me, 1 dump truck, and put all my money into Bitcoin or into gold or silver or just into the Magnificent 7 in the stock market, I would be leaps and bounds ahead of where I am today. Granted, I'm doing all right. I'm doing great where I'm at. But if I could go back and not buy those dump trucks and take that money and put it into something else, like what I just said, the Magnificent 7, Bitcoin, gold or silver or something like that, I would probably have more money than I do now. And I would have had 1,000,000 times less stress. Because running multiple trucks gets to you. Like, it really does. Until you get to a certain level, right? And me personally, I didn't quite make it to that upper level where you can hire a mechanic. The revenue was not enough to hire a mechanic, right? So I was still doing all the books, doing all the maintenance, which when you have old trucks, there's a lot of maintenance with old trucks, especially if you have a driver that is abusive to the stuff, which, I've had a couple, So I was doing unlimited maintenance and driving myself, right? So, risk, reward, effort, return of value, ROI, return on investment. If I could go back, I would just buy 1 truck and I'd put all my money into the stock market, or into Bitcoin or into gold or silver, something like that. Because I think my ROI would have been a lot higher and my stress level would have been a lot lower, right? So, that's kind of where I'm at. Let me look at these comments real quick. Real estate. I love the idea of real estate. would have helped if people could drive instead of tearing up trucks. Yeah, I've been having a bad 2 years since starting my business. 5.5 ton excavator and 12 ton tipper truck. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough economy right now. I gotta say, it's very tough. And I know it's tough because I looked at my revenue from this winter compared to the last year, and I was $30,000 less this year, and I had more trucks to work with. You know, so that right there tells you. Local 175, my bad. Yeah, you just signed up to the Teamsters. Yep, business is okay, you know. When am I going to get the truck back from the dealer? Dude, they've been telling me I should have had it back a month or two ago. So, I mean, it could be any day, but it's probably not going to be for another month or two. I mean, they have no idea, you know. Would I start a business today in dump trucking? Yes, I would. Okay. Here's my thing about real estate, right? Real estate is tricky, right? And I've owned lots of real estate, right? I've owned a house in Puyallup. I owned a duplex in Graham. I owned, you know, my 10 acres in Shelton, right? Real estate is very tricky. My aunt she still owns the property. It's in Tacoma, right? She put renters in there, and she has lost her tail time and time and time again, right? However, when I owned my duplex, I had nothing but amazing luck, right? I never had a real issue with my tenants. I never had a period where I didn't have tenants, right? So the cash flow was always there. You know, I was on the lower end of charging rent, you know, because I just didn't feel the need to really overcharge people, you know, compared to what the market was. But here's the issue with real estate, right? There are a lot of hidden costs that most of you don't know, and you won't know until it comes up, right? Hidden costs. You got a roof that's coming up. Roofs don't last forever. You know what I mean? 10 years. 15 to 20 if you're lucky. If you have a 50-year roof, well, there you go. I mean, maybe it's a lifetime roof. Maybe. If you don't have some crazy windstorm or some crazy branch fall out of a tree and hit your roof or whatever, right? People have, you know, water tanks fail. Toilets fail. Tenants will leave, you know, water running. There will be a clog. Guess what? They throw trash down your septic system. Well, a septic system's $20,000. Yeah. Hi, what's up? Thanks for joining the chat, right? So real estate comes with a lot of hidden costs, right? If you own just a commercial property, you're looking at the asphalt. You're looking at the parking lot, right? You're looking at other liabilities. Like, what if somebody trips on your property and breaks his hand and then he tries to sue you for it, right? So there's a lot of risks in property, right? Especially if you need it to cash flow to afford it, right? So if the cash flow is what is allowing you to afford the mortgage, you could be putting yourself in some deep water if you don't have a cushion or some way of taking care of maintenance issues when they arise, right? So real estate's not stress-free like a lot of guys, you know, make it out to be. You know, I know a guy who had a couple rentals, you know. Well, actually, I know a lot of people who've had rentals and have had nightmare scenarios, right? I got lucky. I skated through real estate with no issues ever, you know. But there are people with nightmare stories, so they do happen. And you do have to account that as risk if you put your money into real estate. Let's see. Hey, block the troll guy. He has no life. Yeah, I don't know which one's the troll, but thank you for blocking him. Let's see. This is Jacob. Teamsters, money, saving another truck, but not going to do the same deal I did last time. Yeah. Yeah, and I know your personal story, Jake, you know, and, you know, I'll give this advice to everybody. Sometimes a partnership is a sinking ship, you know. Yeah, too many trucks is putting all the eggs in one basket. And that is, you know, here's the thing though. I will say this. When you have hyper focus, right, and you are investing in only one thing, and you become the best at one thing, you will do well no matter what. Even if you do trip and your basket tips over, if you know that industry, you will get back up and start running again. You know what I mean? It's not everybody trips and falls, you know? So you can run a successful dump truck business and have all your eggs in your dump truck business or whatever. But me personally, I want to live a more comfortable lifestyle without all my eggs in one basket. You know? So that's where I'm at personally. You know, I've gotten to the age, and I have done well enough for myself with the trucks that I've owned in this climate of Washington, which, you know, Justin's little troll over here is like, oh, you can't compete or whatever. Bud, come out to Washington and give your hand a try. Give your hand a try in Washington, bud. I guarantee you, it will kick you around and toss you back to Idaho or wherever, Ohio, you know. No, it's not true. I am definitely not going out of business, right? Look, I'm sitting in the F-350 Limited. Justin ain't even sitting in the Limited, okay? My truck's got a full sunroof all the way back. If I was going out of business, I would be selling this, right? Ain't happening. I'm getting ready to go in the gym, right? So, no, I'm not going out of business. You know, I'm just taking a different turn, right? I'm still going to be in the dump truck business. I'm still in the dump truck, you know, YouTube world. Yeah. Yeah. What you're doing is you're buying an ancient artifact that nobody even uses anymore. That's what you're buying. Anyways, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining the live stream. It's been eventful. It's been fun. If you're trying to get into the dump truck game, you gotta save your money, but just don't save it in dollars, guys. That's my advice right there. Oh boy. If she's buying another dump truck, she just needs to quit. She does not know how to run a dump truck business, especially in Washington. She's gonna fail utterly. She's already failing, right? Yeah, I mean, how do you crash your own dump truck? Like, I mean, I've been in business for 8 years. I never crashed one of my trucks. Like, what are you doing to crash your own truck? I just don't get it. But whatever. I mean, as a business owner, when you make a mistake, you have to pay for it, right? And it's totally different if one of your employees makes the mistake. You still pay for it. You just don't pay for it fully, right? So, I don't know. She should just stick to her TikToks and her OF or whatever she's got going on. She needs to get out of the dump truck game because she ain't a dump trucker, clearly. So, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to pound that like button and pound that subscribe button.